Now, he also says this right here. He says to perfect that which is lacking in your faith. The meaning here, perfect, is not the way we would understand it in our modern terminology, because it's not to fix something that's broken, but it means to supply what's missing. You see? Okay, so then growth was believed to be ongoing. It never stopped. So amongst the Jews and even the Greeks, and the Jews got this in the post-exilic period, this idea, but they received it from the Greeks in the Intertestament period. And the Greeks believed that education never stops. And so you never quite reach the end of the journey because you're always learning more. Well, the Jews picked that up underneath the Hellenistic era there, and the idea was to continue, because discipleship, it never ends. We continue. There's never a plateau of growth to where you reach and you just stop. Well, I think that same concept is also a Christian concept, because Christ is the mark, and we never quite reach the full mark. We want to continue to grow. We're never satisfied. So then this is what Paul's saying, not to fix a broken, because the church wasn't broken. The church was doing actually very well. So Paul's not saying I want to fix that which is broken, because to understand it like that, it would be awful odd. Like Paul said the same thing to the Romans when he wrote to them, and he was introducing himself to them. He said that I might supply that which is lacking in your faith. Well, then that would have been an odd statement. I'd like to come fix what's broken amongst you guys. Paul didn't even know them yet. And his letter to the Romans was introducing himself to them. So then, see, that wouldn't have been a correct understanding the way we hear that in our ears. So, to understand this in a modern, a more of a modern sense, or in that time period, you'd have to understand that the training was considered progressive. And in the post-exilic period, after the exile, the Jews came up underneath the Hellenistic rule, and there developed underneath the Hellenistic rule a dialectic style of training a student. Now, it originally started to develop from Socrates, called a syncretic method, but it wasn't exactly, which finally developed and became part of the training of the rabbis, which Paul received the training of the rabbis. And in the Jewish or the Greek moral customs, wasn't exactly the syncretic method, but it was considered a dialectical method. And here was the difference, though the one came from the other. Socrates, the syncretic method, Socrates would know where he's planning on taking you, and he would do that by questions. And he would intentionally lead the student in that direction to where they're standing in a particular place. And he would do it in this manner. Well, don't you think? Well, but wouldn't this be true? And he would do it in that manner. Well, that training slowly merged into what was considered more of a dialectic method. And in this method, you didn't know exactly where you were going to end up. Like dancing with a partner in a great ballroom, you don't know exactly. It's just how the music's going to flow, and each step is going to take you. You don't know exactly what part of the ballroom you're going to end up when the music stops. And the training, with the way that they would do the training, is they would ask questions. Well, and the questions would be like this, and well, what do you think about this? And then they would give an answer, and if it was a good answer, they would go, "That's a good answer." Well, how do you think this answers that? See, you don't know whether or not the student's going to give a good answer or a bad answer. If they give a good answer, you'll go in this direction. If they give a bad answer, you're going to go in this direction. And you'll continue to do that in a dialectical manner. Well, this was the way that the Greek, underneath the Greek moral tradition, and also this is the way the rabbis had developed the same tradition from the Greeks in the intertestament period. And this was Paul's method. Okay. So then Paul would do the same thing. And the idea is this teacher would go to the student asking in a questioning manner to find the holes or the gaps in their understanding and then fill them. So then if the student had answered in a wrong manner, showing that they have a lack of understanding in that particular manner, the way you found it was the teacher had done it by asking questions. They found it, then the teacher stopped there and explained it, then they went on. It was more of a filling in the gaps. So this is what Paul's actually meaning when he says to perfect that which is lacking.